Welcome to Turning Base, the podcast that charts a course through the fast-changing world of aviation digital marketing. Hosted by Bryan Redeker, Turning Base is your destination for actionable strategies, expert interviews, and insights tailored for FBOs, charter operators, and general aviation providers. If you're ready to elevate your brand, streamline your messaging, and grow your presence in the skies, you're in the right place. This is Turning Base.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Turning Base podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Redeker, and I am joined once again with my brother, Mr. Bryan Redeker. There we go.
I was gonna say, did you forget? You forget who I was? Welcome to episode 4 again. Yeah, I'm Bryan. You're here with Brandon here on Turning Base. So, yeah, what are we going to talk about in today's episode of Turning Base here, Brandon?
Yeah, so we're going to kind of pick up exactly where we left off with the last episode, where we kind of started talking about, treating your marketing system not like an expense, but as a revenue infrastructure. So we're going to kind of carry that conversation into this one in making what is a marketing infrastructure and what is a marketing system. What do those things actually look like? If we're going to build something, we kind of talked about the hangar before. If you're going to build a hangar, right, you got to have a blueprint. You got to build something. So today we're going to start talking a little bit about your revenue infrastructure, your marketing system. So that's where we're going to pick up today.
Yeah, right. We talked about renting the camp versus owning the dirt last time, right?
Yes.
Renting, meaning like it's just an expense. You pay it every month. It goes out the door. That is your marketing plan. And then turning that into an infrastructure that's more of something you own, is something of an asset that you had. But right before we stopped recording, a question came up that we knew a lot of owners were going to be asking is, okay, I get it, right? Marketing is an infrastructure, but what exactly am I supposed to be building here?
Yeah.
To be honest, that's a fair question, because if I say, go build me a hangar, go buy me a fuel truck, go extend the runway, that's a tangible thing that you could say, yeah, I know exactly what to do here. Now you're taking marketing infrastructure. So what exactly is that going to mean?
Yeah, that is a question that a lot of people are asking. And so, yeah, when we say marketing system, instantly a lot of people start thinking about website, Facebook ads, SEO, TikTok, whatever, Twitter, X that are calling themselves these days, Instagram, newsletters, emails. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many pieces and parts. And it kind of just becomes unorganized. And you're like, well, maybe I'll just I'll run an ad, or, I got to send an email, or
right.
Bits and pieces, and you're like,
it's not a strategy at that point. It's really just like the junk drawer in your house.
It really
right?
does.
It's just full of all this stuff. It's all needed. You're supposed to do something with it, but you don't know what.
Yeah.
So you kind of get decision fatigue over where do you go with all these bits and pieces? What do you do with all of it? You don't know what tool to grab first.
Yeah. So, let's, I think it might help to zoom out a bit, get that 10,000 foot view, the 30,000 foot view. Let's get high, before we get into the weeds, because we got to look at this, from a big picture, and then we can start to narrow down into the, little pieces and parts. So, every aviation business needs a couple things, right? It doesn't matter if you're a flight school, MRO, charter, FBO. There's really kind of 3 things that you need to really start looking at in your system, and that's leads, follow-up, and conversion. And so when you're looking at an aviation growth system, a marketing system, those are the 3 things you really kind of need to master and get good at doing those 3 things.
Yeah, I would agree, Brett. I think you're right, and I think one thing that may help us here with our audience is to take those 3 things, right? The leads, the follow up, the conversion, and let's put them into maybe some more terminology that our audience in aviation may understand better. So why don't we start with the first one, leads? Natalie, hey, run me through, what are you talking about? Run it through me in plain English, and then kind of put that into a little bit of an aviation terminology to help people kind of envision what we're talking about here.
Right. In plain English, it can really be 2 different things, because it could be plane as an airplane, or just plain as in simple, right?
Yeah. No pun intended there, but
Right?
yes,
No pun intended,
plain
but kind of
English.
happened.
Yeah, it just kinda happened that way. I didn't even think about that.
Right? So let's think of leads as your radar screen, right? So if you're going along, you're looking at the radar screen. If there are zero blips on the radar, the sky is empty. It's there's nothing there. So in aviation, leads are kind of other airplanes. So they're other pilots gaining for flight. They're looking at different things, and they're looking for, if you're an MRO, they're looking for a shop. If you're looking for a flight school, somebody wants to get a private pilot's license or continue on and get different things. So let's kind of view it as your radar screen. What's on my radar? Where are the blips? Where are my potential people that might be coming towards me?
Yeah, and getting it out in front of the right audience. I think the mistake that a lot of places make is relying entirely on an old school way
Hmm.
of marketing, word of mouth, right? The accidental walk in. Like, how many people accidentally walk onto a ramp and say, "Oh, this looks like a pretty nice airport. I like their facilities here." No, that really doesn't happen,
No,
right?
no, it doesn't.
Just you're hoping the leads literally fall out of the sky. Like there's a plane flying over and it goes, "Hey, that looks like a nice airport down
That
there. I
does
should
look like a
stop. I
nice.
see they have a fuel
Yes,
truck, a pump, and a building. We should
maybe I
stop."
should stop there.
And you're really not getting that message across over like what is that airport really having to offer? And word of mouth, I mean, yes, aviation is a small
It is a small
community,
community.
but word of mouth can only get you so far, and it only works if you have a pilot to pilot conversation on that topic.
Yeah, so it doesn't like work so well if, someone thinking like, I'd like to go get my pilot's license, and they're just not familiar with how aviation works. The odds are they're not just gonna like drive past the airport, and be like, oh yeah, you know what, I was thinking about getting my pilot's license. I'm just gonna pop in real quick and talk to them,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So
it's
hope.
a massive investment of time and money, and
Oh
it's not
yeah,
something that the very first thing you do is just have them drive by an airport and go, "Well, that looks like
that looks
something
like
I would
fun.
like to do. Maybe I'll just go do it." Like
Yeah.
nobody Nobody does that anymore, right? You're gonna be starting in a lot of other places before you just drive past an airport. Now, sure enough, you might drive past the airport because you have a general interest in aviation
Yes.
or you think, "Man, that might be kinda cool. Where do I go to learn?" But where do you go to learn and where do you find out more information? You're not gonna get just from driving past an airport or
No.
seeing a
No.
little sign hanging on a bulletin board wall.
Yeah. Hope is not a good flight plan. Like that's not in anything. Hope is not a great flight plan. Word of mouth is great, right? Because a lot of pilots talk to other pilots. That's fantastic, but it's inconsistent, right? So we want to build a system that is measurable and consistent. So a true lead infrastructure means that you have active signals out there, like optimize your Google business profile and your local presence, and you're targeting key industry relationships, and being able to predictably start getting eyes onto your business every single week. If no new people enter into your system, right, that's going to be a problem. Your fuel tank's going to be bone dry, and that's not a good place to start from.
No, no, not at all. So, all right, let's get into kind of the next thing, right? You got your blips on the radar.
Yeah.
People know you exist. They know the airport is there. You have some facilities, but the next portion that you talked about is the follow up. Um, and this is where I think the industry takes the biggest hit. And it's not just this industry. I mean, it's a lot of companies. They struggle to get the leads. They finally get the leads, and they're so excited to have them,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean you made a sale. You didn't convert on
No.
it. You didn't
No.
do anything. So what's the next step after you have your leads, you have your blips on the radar screen? What comes next?
Yeah, follow up, and I think you nailed it exactly. And we're talking really aviation business, but this is something in business in general. It's the follow up. I think I heard something that it's like the average sale takes like 10 to 15 contact points to actually make a sale. So this follow up is super super important, and yeah, it's probably one of the biggest spots that people in the aviation industry they're missing. So in aviation, they're frantic to get that customer. They get it. They stand there, fantastic, but they're missing that follow up. And most aviation businesses that I've worked with, the line techs are fantastic. The people that are working there are wonderful. The mechanics, everybody, they're first class people, right? And so it's
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
how do you get this out there, right? So you got to start following up with these people, stay in front of them. Otherwise, they tend to become ghost. You're like, oh, you got that lead, and now it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. I think ghost is a good way of putting it. Plane comes in, tops off with fuel, heads out again, switches frequency. You never hear from him again. You never get a
Yeah,
repeat sale. You lost it completely. Or let's say you want to learn how to become a pilot, right? So you stop by the FBO or the flight school office and you go up to the flight school area and you ask how do you get started? Or maybe you're an existing pilot and you happen to be topping off with fuel in there and you said, probably should get my instrument rating. Maybe I'll go talk to the instructor or somebody
yeah,
there. And, they give you a brochure. You leave. You never hear from them again. And if you don't follow up with them, that business is lost forever, right?
yeah.
That person is gone. They're going to go somewhere else. Maybe they just lost interest in it altogether. So you have an opportunity there to not let them turn into a ghost and follow up with them.
Yeah, you don't want that first conversation to be the last conversation. You got to have a follow up infrastructure, which means you got to have some type of database. You got to have something that you can capture them when airplanes come. You get that tail number, you find out who they are, talk to them, create that email list. And just a little foreshadowing here, we are going to have a whole episode just on your email list coming up too. But who are your charter clients? Like if you're getting these people over and over again, you know what? You might want to talk to them more about trying to build a better relationship, instead of just like, oh, they came in one time, booked a charter flight to do something, and then they're gone, right? So
Yeah, never hear
you
from them again.
you
Yep.
never hear from them again, and even with flight schools, it's a huge time investment. It's a huge cost investment. Things come up, so all of a sudden they got a handful of hours in, and then they stop showing up. Well, do you have a way to know when was the last time they flew? A way to reach back out and contact them. So you got to have that follow up system that keeps running consistently, and not like, oh, maybe I should email that person, right? You should have some
Right.
automated systems that run that can check this for you, send those follow up emails automatically.
Yeah, what's new at the airport? What's the news since last time you were
Yeah.
here? You started on your flight training and haven't been back in a few months. Here's a reminder email. Hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Maybe you offer them some sort of a deal or something to bring them back in, but keep that communication line going. So we've kind of talked about the follow up now. The next part
Hmm.
is the conversion.
Yeah.
So that's the final leg. We talked about three things here. The conversion is kind of your last portion of this. Someone sees the blip on the radar. They see the leads. You're keeping on top of them with the follow up, keeping them top of mind. Um, so now where do you go from here? Right, like you've finally captured the audience, but how do you convert them into
Hmm.
basically
Yeah.
monetizing the relationship?
Yeah, this is literally when the airplane comes in for the landing, right? This is where they touch down and they're like, okay, I'm ready, I'm committed, here we go. So conversion is simply taking that lead and actually having them purchase something. And again, three simple things that we broke it down to, but like any one of these things can get broken very easily, and we see this time and time again. So this is you got to get all three of them. So yeah, this is an important one. So um, you know, I guess if we look at a couple different ways, every business is going to be a little bit different, but we need to know, um, finally, it's getting fall and they're like, the weather's not going to be great this winter. I'm ready to do an avionics upgrade in my airplane. They're going to invest a lot of money and they need to find a shop, and they're going to fill out the contact form, or they're going to start calling around, and then all of a sudden, boom, nothing happens. Like it's just gone, and there's no follow up, and so therefore the message that they sent, because they're ready to purchase, nothing happened. So, and actually,
Didn't convert.
they did not convert, and so this,
Don't forget your ABCs.
yeah,
Always be converting
that's right.
or Always be closing or
Always
always
be
be
closing.
cobbling.
Yeah.
Anyway, always be converting. ABCs. Remember your ABCs.
Memory or ABCs, yeah. And this actually just happened to me the other day. So I was actually looking into renting an office space, and so I filled out their online form and sent it in, and there was the contact us page, and nothing happened. 2 weeks later, I actually finally called them, and I got somebody very helpful on the phone and kind of talked to them, and I told them about how I filled out the contact form, and I heard nothing for 2 weeks. And actually, they didn't even have their phone number listed on their website. I actually had to use Google to find their phone number to give them a call. I searched all over. It was just the contact form, and that was it. So I gave them my email address, and I said, "This is what I'm looking for." And they did follow up with that information. And then a few days later, they sent me another follow up, and they said, "Hey, thanks for letting us know that the contact form wasn't working." They had no idea that the contact form wasn't working, and leads were just, they weren't coming in. So if they're not coming in, there's no follow up. You're never going to convert them.
No, and think about it. In that particular case, you had already reached out to them. Like you were already
Yes.
in buying mode, right? You're
Yes.
already in that mindset, and you reached out to them. For a lot of FBOs, their customers aren't even at that point yet. You're
Yeah.
trying to get them interested. You're even a step beyond. But yeah, I mean, I got countless stories that we could go on all day
Oh,
over.
so many.
I need a service done. I call said place that does service. They never return the phone call. They never call back, or it's weeks later they say, "Oh yeah, I finally got your message." I'm like, by that time, if I really needed that service to be done, I moved on and
And
found
you
somebody
moved
else.
on.
Like
Game
I,
over.
you obviously don't want my business if that's the case. So but on the flip side, there's also a balance there because I've had another
Yes.
service that man they called like every week begging for my business, and then I'm like, all right, let's quote this, let's talk about it, let's see what we get here, and then the very first thing I kind of gave it says, I don't like that. Why don't we see what we can do? And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, let me call you back on that. I'll call you next week. Never heard back. So I look and
And
say,
that
well,
drops off.
man, you said you're going to follow up and you never followed up. That
Hmm.
doesn't speak too good either. So you got to follow through, and that's part of that conversion. If you got someone who's interested, they're on the line, right? They're on the hook. They're ready to spend money with you. You got to convert on that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so, you can't have a broken process. You need to have all three systems working well just in the marketing side to, be able to get that lead, follow up, convert, and then hand it off to the rest of the team too, right? And that's a whole nother topic. But you can't have any one of those systems broken because it's not going to work well. And just like we talked about, even with that real estate, like how many leads and potential sales did they
Hmm.
miss because that was gone? They sent the
Yeah,
contact form, there wasn't a phone number easily accessible, and they said, "Oh, okay, well they apparently don't want my business. I'm gonna move on." And
yeah,
and
that's
they didn't
exactly
even
right.
know it was broken.
If they don't have the right contact information, their website is clunky or hard to use or doesn't exist. They don't have a mobile location. Their Facebook page hasn't been updated in 12 months and it has no valuable information on it. These are the type of things that break down and say, look, I'm going to go. They're obviously not interested in growing or having my business. I'll go somewhere else. So you got to build a roadmap on
Yes.
how you want to gather those leads. How do you want to do a follow up? How do you want to do a conversion? It's really part of a strategy, and you have
Yeah,
to get
it
all
is.
these things to interact together to start making a difference on top line growth, which eventually will go down to money in the bank.
Yeah, you almost need to map out the potential customer journey from start to finish. It really needs to be mapped out ahead of time. And honestly, take a few minutes and bring up your website and fill out the forms and make sure it's working correctly and it's
Yeah,
getting to the
yeah.
right department. Like actually go through it every so often and make sure it's working. And if you start seeing a drop off in leads or in follow up, check to see that something isn't broken there. If, like that real estate, if their leads started dropping off, they should have, like, that should have been a red flag. Like, something might be broken here. I need to go figure out
Yeah.
what's not working right now.
Yeah, because a couple things may be happening. Your system isn't working right,
Hmm.
and you don't even know it. So people can't get a hold of you, or they can't
Yeah.
ask a question, or the phone number is wrong, and they're calling somebody else, or a neighboring airport, your competition is getting that customer because
They
they're
are
doing
doing
something
it.
that you didn't follow through. They're getting the conversion, and not you.
Exactly. Yeah. So if your system's broken and the airport a couple miles away isn't, well, guess where people are going to go? So that's
Yeah.
going to be a problem.
And you really, it is an entire system too. And I think a lot of the owners, they make a mistake of trying to fix the entire thing at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they try to just say, I'm just going to buy a new tool. And that new tool, maybe we need a new website, and it just, without the proper execution, the proper follow through and sending out the information, it just sits out there on a dark corner of the internet and no one pays any attention. Or
Yes.
I need to get an email list,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and like I'm just gonna blast a canned email to all these people and hope that they see it. And I'm thinking, yeah, good luck at that.
Yeah. Let's
And the
run
last
some
thing is,
Google
we need to
ads
run
and
more
Facebook
Facebook ads.
ads without the
Yeah,
system running in place.
right.
And
Yeah, it
that's
all has
not
to
going to
kind
end
of work
well.
together, and you need
It
a good
does.
strategy to make this work.
Yeah, so if relating it back to airplanes again, if you have no leads, it's kind of like your fuel tank is completely empty. You're not going to go very far. If you don't have a follow up, that means that your fuel system has a leak in it somewhere between the tank and the engine. So you're pumping fuel, except for it's getting to the grass and spraying everywhere, and now you got a big problem, and you can't run your engine at full power. And if you don't have a good conversion process, the engine's choking on something. Your injectors or something is not quite right, and the engine just can't get up to full power.
Which is always a good reminder to check your fuel systems for any leaks prior
Yes, it
to,
does.
just because I happen to be dealing with that right now. So it's not
Huh?
going on the grass yet, but it most certainly is not where it's supposed to go. But because you have a problem, right? The system all needs to work together for it to function. And that's the same if it is for an engine, or if it's the same for an airplane, or same for your marketing plan. So yeah, stop looking at the individual tool and start building the entire machine. Start looking at it from a systems perspective. Break it down into those sub segments, right? The leads, the follow up, the conversion. Put your strategy together on how
Yeah.
are you going to get all this to work together to deliver a result.
Yeah, and a lot of times, actually, when I've talked to a number of clients, they're like, "Okay, I think I'm ready to do ads," and it's like, you know what? Let's pause right there. Let's look at the rest of the system. Yes, ads work absolutely, and you spend the money, and they can convert. However, if you don't have a really good system in place ahead of time, you're actually going to be spending more money. You're not going to get that return on investment that you can once you get that whole system working and then you do the ads. It's only just going to compound the end result, and that's you got to look at the infrastructure first before you can really start to do those things.
Right. Otherwise, you just end up with an expense like we talked about at the very beginning.
Exactly.
It's just a renting. It's dollars going out without a dollars coming back in again. It's just an expense if it all doesn't work together. And when it does work together, you can convert that into dollars,
Yes.
and put that in the bank and
Put it
expand
in the
your
bank.
operation and do new things. But it takes all of it working together, and it takes a strategy. So,
Yeah.
well, I
Get
think that kind of covers our
it
topics here we
does.
wanted to hit up on for episode 4. But we had a book we wanted to cover, and it's a book I'm not all that familiar with.
Yeah.
It's the E Myth revisited by Michael Gerber. So it's one that I'm not all that familiar with. So Brandon, I'm going to let you kind of run with this a little bit, but it falls in line with the framework of what we just talked about. So
It does. It
how does
does.
it fit in with what we just talked about, Brandon?
Yeah, and I know last time we talked about books, we're like, oh, we'll get into an aviation book, and that will happen. But as I was kind of writing out this podcast, this book came to my mind, and I said, I have to talk about this book because it really changed my thinking and approach to business in general. And it is a blueprint for exactly kind of what we talked about. So the E myth stands for the entrepreneurial myth, and it's the fatal
It's not
assumption.
the electrical myth or the
No, no.
electronic myth.
Nope.
uh, electronics are very mythical to begin with, but it's not that, is it?
Well, they all run on smoke, right? And if you let the smoke out of electronics, it doesn't work anymore.
I have tried to
So
put it back in. It fails every
yeah.
time.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So that's the problem with electronics is they run on this special smoke, and once you let the smoke out, it's kind of game over. So yeah.
Indeed.
So this myth is not electrical. It is the entrepreneurial myth, and it's kind of the fatal assumption that a lot of businesses run into is that how do you go from doing the technical work of an aviation business to actually getting it to run a business that grows, right? It's that shift in mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could tell you, I have encountered a lot of businesses that start the same way. It's usually service based stuff, for the
Yes.
house or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I was like really good at like, pounding deck boards onto a deck. So I started my own deck refinishing company, but I don't know anything about how to run a business, how to manage the P&L, how to market and do all the other things. But I do know how to do the technical part. But to take
Yeah.
that technical knowledge, which is very important, and also apply that to the business is not easy. And I agree. A lot of entrepreneurs fall
They do.
into this same trap. And once you do, it's very difficult because now you are so overburdened trying to run the business that you've lost control over the technical aspect that you were good at. And now you've actually done nothing well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So Gerber kind of points out when technicians they start a business, they don't know actually how to create a company and a company that runs. They just created a grueling, high stress job that they can't leave now. Versus when they were an employee, they could leave, but now they own the company, they can't. So they go from doing what they love day to day to now doing all this chaos and admin and paperwork and all these other things that they were like, I just, I want to go wrench on airplanes or
right.
I want to go fly.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want to be sitting in front of a computer doing all this paperwork. That's actually why I left my other job because I didn't want to do that anymore. So now they're stuck doing it. So that can become a trap. So it kind of comes down to the famous concept is that you kind of have to stop working in your business and start working on your business. So working in the business is driving that fuel truck up because your tech called in sick that day, or you're the only person that can do this one specific task. You start to become your own bottleneck within the company. And so you need to be able to engineer a predictable system, right? Going back to building a system so that you can handle those tasks and you can start to build out a structure for each one of these tasks so that you don't actually have to do all of them. And as people come and go, you have a system that can train them and get them up to speed on that particular job and how your business wants to run. So Gerber kind of talks about he uses this phrase, the turnkey revolution. And he kind of relates it back to he studied a lot of how franchises work and how if you can have a predictable system where if you go to, for the most part, if you go to Burger King or McDonald's or a fast food franchise restaurant, you get almost the same food every time you go. And if you go to a different city, it's very similar. So what they've done is they've built all of these processes and it's the same repeatable system. And so it kind of forces you to stop relying on individual talents and then burning yourself out a lot of times. And then working on designing a infrastructure of a system that can run and you get predictable results. So going back to what we talked about earlier in building a revenue system, it's the same thing. You want to build a predictable system. And that's what this book really, really hits home in, which is why as I was writing this out, I was like, this has got to be the book because it really goes down into talking about how to build some of these predictable systems within your business and why it's so important. So it kind of helps you with that business mindset of, okay, let's step back. Let's look at it from a high level and give you the blueprint. And so it is just a fantastic book from looking at it from that high level and starting to look at why you need systems to be able to build a very repeatable system. So, and that wraps up episode 4 already. We're kind of cruising through some, and we have some exciting things. And we'll kind of, as we go through this on these, we're going to dive into more of these a little bit more specific. And we also have some awesome interviews that are going to be coming up soon, which I'm super excited about. Awesome. Thank you. See you guys next week.
Thanks for flying with us on Turning Base. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your team. Want more tips and tools for marketing your aviation business? Visit us at readymarketing.net. Until next time, keep your wings level, your message clear, and your altitude high.